We'll get started, and I'll add some folks along the way if I have to. But thank you, everybody, for making the time this morning. I sent everyone a PDF yesterday. I hope you all got that. You can take a few notes there. I can also make the presentation available to anybody later on if you wish as well. We're going to spend about an hour together. I've got a number of things to go through. So first of all, just for you, those of you that don't know me, my name is Larry Anderson, and I own a company called Larry Anderson Consultants, and we're based out of Ridgeway, as they say, God's country. And we've been operating since 2005, and we work with over the last 15 years, we've worked with probably a couple hundred small businesses in Niagara, Hamilton area. Helping them with everything from sales to developing their staff, training, etc. So like I mentioned, your microphone is muted, but if you have a question, use the chat feature. Feel free to send a message or a question. And after the webinar, if anybody has any questions or anything you want to talk to, feel free to email me or give me a call, or we can even set up a Zoom as well. All right, so let's get started here. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to focus on you first, where your mindset is, how you're feeling about things, how you're going to get yourself prepared for some work you have to do going forward. Next, we're going to do what I call a reality check. And when we work with clients that are going through some type of crisis or major challenge, we always start off with what we call a reality check, and I'm going to focus on that today. There's three parts to it. It's people, process, and product, and we'll go into that. And then lastly, we're going to give you a brief outline on how to develop a 90-day plan so that you can get this stuff working, get your business moving. So believe it or not, there is a big opportunity in front of us, even though with all the uncertainty and everything we're all going through. There is a great opportunity for you, and that's to take a fresh look at your business and possibly even reinvent aspects of it. Churchill said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste," and he was right. And what that means is you can look at things with new eyes, fresh eyes, and I'm sorry, just one second. Someone is having trouble. Bear with me one second. Okay, sorry about that, folks. Just a question from the group. And the status quo is over. It's a chance for us to do things differently. So I want you to keep this at the top of your mind. Your customers are going to be a little different right now. They're going to be in a different frame of mind. They're going to be a little worried, a little nervous about things, a little unsure of things. Your staff, if you have employees, they're going to be nervous. They're going to be concerned about themselves and their family's health and their health. And you are going to be different, believe it or not. You're going to be a little more worried, a little more cautious about things. But it's not about dwelling on that. It's just about being comfortable with it and being prepared to move forward. So let's talk about you. Where are you right now? Are you stressed? Are you frustrated? Are you feeling scared? Or are you the opposite of that? Are you very optimistic, excited, focused? Or maybe you're a combination of all of the above. Many business owners that I've been speaking to right now say they feel a little schizophrenic right now, as a matter of fact, that sometimes they're even worried that because their emotions are floating all over the place. And it's okay. It's okay to feel that way. It's normal. The pandemic was unforeseen. We weren't prepared for it. And it's definitely caused a lot of havoc in most of our lives. But we're going to be reopening, and we're going to be bringing customers into our businesses and staff back and getting things going. And we need to be both positive and realistic about this. Now, I think you need to be positive because the people around you, your staff, your employees, the vendors, etc., they need to believe that you can lead them. So that's why we need to have a positive attitude towards this. But we also need to be realistic because there's going to be a ton of work to do. There's a lot that can go wrong. And with all the changing landscapes around us, we have to make changes on the fly. So we have to be prepared for that. So with the constant changing landscape of government regulations and market uncertainty, you also need to be aware of something called self-doubt. It can creep in, it can take over, and it can actually paralyze us and make us stop doing everything we're doing. It's okay to have worries, and it's okay to think about them, but don't let them take you over. We also need to make sure it doesn't take over our teams, our people. We need to, again, have regular conversations with our staff about how they're feeling and how we're doing, and letting them know through your communications about where the company's going and how it's doing. Now, at the same time, we can't pretend that everything's just going to go back to the way it was, because it's not. Customers are going to change the way they shop or the way they buy. You're going to be changing possibly the way you sell or the way you run your business. And customers are also going to be focused right now more on immediate needs versus things that they want. So the difference between a want and a need is more focused on necessity, and a want is about filling a void or something to be desired. So customers are definitely going to be more focused on needs right now, and your company is going to have to be paying attention to that. Your vendors may also have a hard time filling orders. They may have a hard time finding materials. So again, being patient with everyone. But the world's going to look a lot different. So we can't pretend it's going to be the same. And the more prepared we are for that, the better. Now, one of the biggest aspects to overcoming a challenge is your ability to be self-aware. And self-awareness is about being able to see yourself through clear eyes, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, know the things that can trigger you, and know the things that can make you focused and stronger and motivated. And there's really 4 aspects to being self-aware. I just want to take a minute here and chat about those. The first thing is your thoughts. And believe it or not, the things you think about are the things that you end up manifesting into reality. Now, our subconscious is always working 24 hours a day. And it can work against us quite a bit of the time. It can tell us we don't know what we're doing, or what we're doing isn't good enough, or it can make us second guess every decision we're making. And if you add a crisis on top of that, our thoughts can become negative quickly. So you have to become aware, are my thoughts drifting towards the negative side? The second part is your language. Your words carry a lot of weight in your organization, probably far more weight than you realize. And if that's the case, you need to be conscious of words you're using. So if you are giving yourself excuses like, I'm going to try to do that, maybe we might do that, those are excuse words. Your staff and your customers are going to also use those words. So again, be conscious of your language. Try to use positive language. Try to use words that make people want to get excited about what you're doing. The second thing is your actions. Sometimes with self-doubt and concern over the crisis, we can stumble, or we can make decisions not to make decisions. We can hold back on things. And that can also be a huge challenge trying to grow your business. So again, remember, it's not about perfect action. It's about positive action. So if every day you're doing something positive to move your business forward, then you're doing the right things. You'll never be perfect, so don't even try to be like that. And the last thing is, of course, your results. And your results are things that we need to be communicated with your staff. You need to talk about the things you're achieving. You need to talk about the progress we're making. People love to know how we're doing. So again, you're going to be over communicating during the crisis with your team and your customers to let them know how you're doing, what you're working on, what you're building, exciting new things to happen. Now, if things end up not going as planned, that's okay. You can have a conversation about that. And you can also let your staff know what you're planning to do to fix those problems. So the great place to start when you're working on recovering from a major crisis and getting your business ready, believe it or not, is with your purpose and your vision. You need to just make sure you are clear about why your business exists, what you're trying to do, and where you're trying to take it. Because like I said earlier, people in a crisis want to be led, and they're going to be looking to you to do that. So if you don't have staff, your customers are still going to be looking to you to know that you feel you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about, where you're taking your company, and how your company can specifically help them. If you do have employees, they want to know that they have job security, that this company is on solid ground, that we're taking it somewhere positively. So again, start with your purpose and start with your vision. And again, remember, a vision needs to be seen in the person's mind. So if you can describe it quickly and easily to your staff that they can see it, then they can buy into it. And they also need to see how they fit into it. And that includes your customers. People are attracted to companies and people that they can see themselves working with. They can see how they fit into their lives. So again, picture that purpose that you're going to describe to your customers and your staff. Make sure it's a clear picture. Now, when we work with clients on helping them do this, we have a series of questions we go through, and it helps you get clearer. I've put 3 into this presentation today that I think would help you get started. So the first question is, what opportunities do we have in front of us that we haven't taken advantage of? So this gives you a chance to take a step back, look at your customers, look at your competition, and look at the trends in your marketplace and say, is there something that we haven't taken advantage of? So many companies are looking at developing online virtual opportunities with their customers. Many companies have got into selling, PPE products, but expand beyond that. What are things that you can do that you haven't taken advantage of? There may have been other opportunities you were looking at before the pandemic that once you do some research now, you might see that there's actually quite a big opportunity for you. The next one is, what is your sustainable competitive advantage? Now, there's an old marketing term called your unique selling proposition. And unique is important, but more important is about being sustainable. What is that thing you can deliver to your customers better than your competitors that you can consistently deliver over time and that has great value to your customers? What is that thing? So again, be very focused on that, be very clear about it, get input from your staff, and even get input from your customers on this. It'll help you get clearer about your purpose and your vision. Excuse me. And the last is, what are the top 5 issues facing your clients today that you can solve? This is about being understood by your customers, that they believe you understand them. This is about your customers looking at you and saying, boy, you've taken the time to really get to know me. And this has a big impact, especially if you're in the business-to-business selling world. That if you can walk in and say, I know these are some things you're going through right now, and here's how we can help. Customers definitely will be more open to hearing from you and seeing now how you can help them. These 3 questions, and there's other ones I can send you to if you want to send me an email after this, they can help you really get focused on what your purpose and your vision is, because it's ultimately important to start there, because your people will want to see something that they can believe in, and your customers want to know that they're dealing with someone that's going to be around for a long period of time. So you're getting clear on the picture in your mind of what you want your business to be and where you're going to take it. And you need to be able to explain it in just a few minutes. And you want to help people be part of something bigger than themselves. And that's what this exercise is all about. And a clear purpose and a clear vision also help you attract better customers and also help you attract better employees. So again, it's a really, really worthwhile exercise, and it also grounds you. As you're going through a crisis, we have a tendency to want to put out fires and run around and feel busy all the time, but we can also lose track of what we're trying to accomplish. So by getting back in touch with that, your vision and your purpose, you really can ground your business and get everyone in your company focused on the same direction and rowing in the same way. So As I mentioned earlier, one of the things we always start with when we're dealing with a company that has a major obstacle to overcome is we do what we call a reality check. And it's three parts to it. It's people, process, and product. On the people side, and I'm going to get into these in much more detail. On the people side, we focus on your current employees, new hires, training, roles and responsibilities, performance, and leadership. On the process side, we look at all the departments you have, all the systems in place in those departments, your facilities, your equipment, technology, et cetera. And on the product side, that's the selling and the marketing of your business, including the products and service you offer, and what kind of customer experience are you delivering or do you want to deliver? So we're going to start with the most important part of your business, and that's the people side. So on the people side, you have current staff, which we'll get into in a second, new hires, because this actually might be an opportunity for you to bring some new people on board. Your culture, I want to talk about how important that is to building a team that wants to be together and move the company forward. And of course, leadership, which is needed now more than ever. So let's talk about your current staff. So some of you may have people that have been laid off. You might have people working from home. You need to have a discussion with them individually to find out where they are and how they're feeling about things. Some people have great fears about the coronavirus. Some people think it's no big deal. It's all over the place. And those attitudes and worries and fears can come into your business and cause a lot of havoc. So it's a good idea to have a conversation with them individually, but also discuss, what you're hoping that will happen at your business as far as conversations around that. Are you going to have a zero tolerance policy that we can't discuss that with our teams? Or are we going to have, yes, we can share a little bit, but let's keep it to a minimum. You need to have some policies in mind around discussing the coronavirus and how people are feeling about the whole pandemic. But it's good to have discussions with them. The second thing is we look at performance of our staff. Who was performing well before the pandemic? What can we count on them going forward? And what do we think we can get them to do now? What staff were having challenges? Am I looking at replacing those staff? Am I looking at changing their roles within the organization? Or am I looking at possibly retraining them or refreshing what they do to make them more productive? We've worked with a company recently that we're currently working with them, where we went through every employee and identified where they were strong and where they were needing some help. We put together some training programs for those specific people, and then we started to retrain them. And some of it was new training because it was new skills for them, but a lot of it was retraining. That had a big impact on morale on the company, that people felt that they were being paid attention to and invested in. And it was a big deal. The last part of current staff is we want to set goals for everybody so that they have some things to strive for. And goals also help people stay focused and get less distracted and less worried about what's happening to them. When they have a bit of a plan for themselves and some goals, they can feel more focused and more grounded in the company, and less time to sit there and worry and wallow about what we might be going through and what might be happening. So again, this is a great starting point with your current staff. These are 5 things that you should get started on right away. Now, you need to refocus your team as well. Like I said, some people will be coming off of layoff. Some people have been working from home, adding new people to your team. Here are some things that you should look at doing as well to add more structure to your group. First, again, is acknowledging individuals and their current reality. So treat everyone as an individual and acknowledge the fact that they have thoughts and ideas and feelings about things, but let them know that we are a unified team and we're moving through this together, and that we want to make sure everybody understands what we're trying to accomplish, why we're trying to do it, and what we expect of you. And that, yes, you're allowed to have, thoughts and feelings and have some fear, but at the same time, we're in this together. The other thing is you need to have more regular team meetings. They don't have to be long. They don't have to be hour-long things. They can be 10 minutes, but more even huddles, daily huddles or weekly huddles with your team to let them know what's happening, what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish, and most importantly, what kind of progress we're making and how we're doing. Individuals need to have their one-on-one priorities. What are they working on? What's important to them? And then I strongly suggest you even look at coaching. Coaching is something you might want to add for some of your either troubled employees that they're having trouble keeping up or getting back up to speed, or some of your superstars where you're trying to expect more out of them to let them know they have that added support. And then lastly is develop some engagement and some team building if you can. This could simply be lunch once a week with the group. Maybe if you have a facility where you can even do a barbecue or something once a week or every other week. Just build some camaraderie and lets everybody know we're in this together. Now let's talk about if you're going to be bringing new staff on. Excuse me. We strongly stress that you focus on the fit of the individual versus their aptitude. If the individual has a ton of experience, but their attitude is bad, that's going to be very cancerous to your organization. Now, and all of you already know this, but it's incredibly important during a crisis that we don't just try and hire someone because, well, that's all we could find was this person. Yes, they might fill a very short-term need, but ultimately they're going to cause a lot more damage to your organization. So again, take your time. Number two is training. Now we have a little policy with a new hire. We call it the 2-2-30-60. So we have 2 days of training, solid training where they spend time in every department of our organization. Then 2 weeks later, we recap that training, maybe in a shorter time, maybe it takes half a day to a day. 30 days later, again, we recap that training, making sure that they understand everything. Excuse me. And 60 days later, again, one more time. Now, the reason we put so much emphasis on this training is because in the probationary period, it's a very expensive time for your company. You've spent a lot of time recruiting this person and a lot of time training this person. We want to make sure we're setting them up for success. So the more training and time we can spend with them and reinforcing what we're trying to do, the better chance they have about coming on your team and being a solid performer. Onboarding simply is meaning we have a process for bringing our people on. We don't just leave it to chance. So when we help clients hire people, we typically put up together a 90-day hiring onboarding plan. And we will set milestones that after 2 weeks, we expect the employee to be able to do this. After 30 days, the employee should be able to do this, 60 days, and then 90 days. And after that, we want to make sure that the employee is progressing as we need them to, and that they're achieving what we need. The other critical thing that many employers don't do is set very clear and regular expectations of their staff. Excuse me. Expectations are critical because most of the time when we see someone that doesn't make it through probation, it's because they didn't understand what was expected of them, and the employer was disappointed, but the employee said, well, I didn't know that's what I was supposed to do. So it ends up being quite a challenge. And then the last thing is goals and plans again. Just like for your current staff, people need to know what they're doing and what they're working on in order to move forward. So again, it keeps them focused and keeps them without their mind able to wander and worry about some of their own problems and whatnot. The next part is culture and leadership. Now, culture is the combination of what you tolerate and what you celebrate. And I want to talk about that for a second. So if you have a culture that celebrates sharing ideas, being promoted based on performance, not seniority, helping each other out without getting something in return, if that's your culture, you're going to build a very positive culture. Now, if you tolerate things like absenteeism or toxic conversations or bullying or not holding people accountable, then you're going to find that you're going to have a much more negative culture, and that's going to be much harder to overcome. So again, you want to build a culture on purpose. You want to get clear about what you're trying to do and where you're going and what the things are that you'll celebrate in your business and the things that you'll tolerate in your business. So if you're not sure, the first thing I do is I put together a key team of individuals in my business that I need in order for me to be successful. It's usually a key team of 3 to 5 people, depending on the size of your company. Then with that group, you can sit down and talk about what are the things that we celebrate here and what are the things we tolerate. And from there, you can get sort of a clear picture of what kind of culture you're trying to create. And then on the leadership side, make sure these people are leaders, that people want to follow them. And also always invest in upgrading your leadership skills. Always make sure you're spending time getting better at communication, at building trust with people, at handling difficult conversations, at managing change, at engaging employees. Those are all critical leadership skills. So again, this is another really important part of your people side. So just to quickly recap, we talked about your current staff. You need to make sure you're getting in touch with them, seeing where they are, and giving them a focus. When you're hiring new people, make sure that their training is well thought out and you give them a plan to be successful. And then make sure you're focused on your culture and your leadership so that the people side of your business is rock solid. And if the people side of your business is solid, the rest of the stuff is so much easier to execute. I just want to, before we go on to the process side, I just want to talk about one important thing, and that is failure and mistakes. There's really 2 types of issues that we'll have around this, and that is deficiency of knowledge and deficiency of execution. So they're both 2 different types of mistakes or issues that you can run into. Deficiency of knowledge is typically a training problem. Somebody doesn't know what they're doing. So they've either never done it before or it's been a long time since they've done it and they need to be refreshed. So a mistake or failure that's happening in your business related to knowledge is very easy to solve and can be solved quickly, and you can identify it quickly. This person just doesn't know what they're doing. We're going to train them. A deficiency of execution, on the other hand, is much more complicated and difficult to solve. Deficiency of execution simply means the person knows what to do, but they're not doing it. So that's either by choice, it could be an attitude, or it could be things like toxic work environment, bullying, absenteeism, bad attitude, etc. So a deficiency of execution is a type of mistake or failure that we need to avoid, and we need to get addressed quickly. A deficiency of knowledge mistake or failure are things that should be encouraged, because that means people are trying new things and learning new things, and they're not purposely trying to fail. They're just failing because they don't have enough knowledge. That might mean they need more execution. So I just wanted to point that out about when you're training staff and you're refreshing staff or moving staff around into new roles, be patient with them. As long as it's a deficiency of knowledge problem, it's okay to make those kinds of mistakes. So let's just do a quick case study. I want to just share with you a quick story of a client that we're working with. These guys work in the rented facilities industry. It's a family business with the 2nd generation starting to take over the business right now. They're located in Hamilton. They have about 30 employees and about $4.5 million in sales. Now, the issue that they had was the recovering from the 2008 financial crisis. And 3 main things came out of that. We learned that their management team was not communicating with each other at all. And they were all working separately, running around, trying to put out fires on their own with no cohesiveness. The lead hands they had were all technically sound people, but they really had no people skills. They were very poor leaders, and they were only focused on the work. And then the team also, the whole company was just focused on tasks and work, and now there was no vision, culture, team being built. So again, everybody was in their own worlds, and they weren't getting anything really accomplished. So what we did is the ownership team, we met with them and we said, listen, we need to start communicating where we're going. So the key leadership team got focused on their vision, and then we met regularly with every employee in a team environment where possible. and discuss the vision and culture and where we were trying to take the business. And that right off the bat had a huge impact on morale, and people started to feel more connected. Secondly, we did some training with the team leads to give them some leadership skills so that they were better able to connect with their teams, which had a big effect. And the management team also trained to become mentors and coaches so they could coach the team leads and their staff. And that had, again, a big impact. What ended up happening is there was a lot more communication within the company, and everyone got focused on one single direction. And then all of a sudden, we could see the momentum starting to move as everyone was focused on that one goal, one vision. Another case study, just to shift completely, is that this is a municipality in Niagara that has about 250 employees. And the major issue here, crisis that they were facing, was they were merging 4 separate departments into one building. These siloed teams never communicated, had very little trust with each other. There was a huge trepidation about moving these 4 departments together. Everyone was very upset about it. Unfortunately, there was a lot of weak leadership. There was a lot of buck passing and blaming, which again is not leadership. It's about focused on yourself, not the team. Advancement here was based on seniority and not performance. So a lot of people felt, why should I work hard? Why should I bother if I'm not going to be promoted anyway? And then the culture was really about covering your butt and blaming others. So there was a lot to do here. So really what ended up happening is there was some adjustments to the senior team. There was a couple people promoted. There was a person that left the organization, and they really got focused on what they were trying to do, and they created quite a stunning vision of where they wanted to take everyone. The next thing we did is we instituted a whole bunch of training, whether it was technical, people skills, et cetera. There's a whole bunch of different trainings, but we did it with mixed teams. We put people from all the different departments together into teams, and that forced them to get to know each other. That had a huge effect on building camaraderie in the group, because a lot of these people never had the opportunity to work together before, and that had a big impact. Again, regular face-to-face communication with senior management and rank and files. We used to do once a month. We called them town halls, where we would bring as many as we could into the group and do conversations. Sometimes we do 2 or 3 in a day or over the course of a week, so we could make sure everybody was there. And the biggest thing was we had 0 tolerance for toxic conversations. We just didn't allow it, and it was addressed immediately, and the leaders within the organization tackled it quickly. And as a matter of fact, it even became a little bit self-policing, with some of the staff even calling others on, hey, that's not helpful. Let's stay focused. So it had a big impact. So that wraps up the people side of our reality check. Let's move on to our process side. And really, there's 6 areas that we focus on here. We look at departments. We review all your current processes that are in place. We develop missing ones, whatever isn't working or what we don't have. A quick review of equipment and machinery, or do we have the tools in place to help us do what we want to do? Technology, and of course, we look at investment. Do we need to make any investments in what we need to do to accomplish to move the business forward? Now, here's the basic framework of how we do an evaluation of either a department or a process or anything we're looking at making changes to. So the first thing we do is, now I should back up and say that we typically do this with our key team for that department. So if you have a small business and you don't have a lot of employees, you can get everyone involved. If you have a larger business with departments, you get the head of that department, then a couple of key people in that department, and then usually, the president or ownership of the company involved. The first thing we do is we confirm the area for discussion. Now, this might sound odd or obvious, but I cannot tell you the number of times I've been in a meeting where we were talking about a specific department or process, and we were 15, 20, 30 minutes into the conversation, and then people would in the group would say, wait a minute, I thought we were talking about this. and we were all over the map. So the first thing is we write it down and we define specifically what it is we're talking about. Next, we identify issues. What's currently not working, or what are the things we're worried about with this right now? Where are the inefficiencies? Then what we do is we map out a new process or a new way of doing things. What do we need to put in place? What people do we need? What equipment do we need? What dollars do we need? What kind of timelines do we need? We map all of that out into a new process. And this can take some time depending on what you're trying to accomplish, but it's well worth the investment, because if you get it right, it has such a big impact on productivity down the road. Next, you're going to need to find a champion. Now, this is typically the head of the department. However, if you're a small business and you don't have departments, so you just have a small team, and you can pick an individual to champion this. Then you need to put together what we call a little implementation plan. And milestones are important because they give you dates to shoot for. So again, we've mapped out this new process. We think it's going to take 3 months to implement. Okay, well, after 30 days, we should be here. After 60 days, we should be here. And after 90 days, we should be here. Again, mapping that out and putting it in writing has a big impact on your success. You can't leave things to be just discussed open in the air. They have to be put down on paper so people can see what we're trying to do. And then, of course, measuring the impact. So what are we trying to accomplish? If we're trying to fix inventory, or if we're working on a production issue, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to increase efficiencies of what? So measure that kind of impact that you're trying to have and why you've chosen that. So again, I'll share a quick little case study. We have an automotive parts company we work with. Their third generation family business in Niagara, about 50 employees and about 12 million in annual sales. And the big issue is, and this is something we're actually going through now, we're getting to the tail end of it, is the third generation is taking over from the second generation. And there was significant challenges to this. The second generation obviously had grown a great business to a certain point, and the third generation were full of motivation and excitement to take it where they thought it could go. And right off the bat, there was a lot of sparks and disagreement about where we're going and what we're doing. So one of the first things we started with, we said, well, let's do a review. So we reviewed all the departments in the organization, and we found significant inefficiencies in every area, from sales to production to inventory to even accounting. So from there, we said, okay, we then prioritized what are the departments that are most needed to be fixed first, and then we worked on those. Second was, we realized the management team itself, not just the ownership, but the managers in the company, there was really poor communication between everyone. It's not that they didn't get along, they just were not communicating well. There was no formal structure to it. Everything was sort of hallway conversations, or in passing, or cryptic emails sent that no one could understand. So we then put real formal communication in place with regular meetings that were documented with minutes, and things were followed up on. So there's a lot more structure. And then, of course, because management were a bit dysfunctional, there wasn't a lot of trust between them and their rank and file employees. So what we did is we worked on some skills with the management team to be able to communicate better and build trust with their team. And then we scheduled regular communications with the staff. So again, we reviewed all the processes and revised as needed. We even determined staff roles and moved people around. Some of the managers ended up with different responsibilities, different roles. We even had one manager got a brand new title and didn't even do about 80% of what he used to do. And it just made such a better fit for him and the business. We set targets for 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months, which was excellent, because it seemed like such a daunting, huge task, which all of you are going through right now with reopening your businesses, that chunking it down into smaller bites made it more palatable for everyone, and everyone plus could feel that they were making some progress. Because there's nothing worse than trying to attack a new problem and feeling like you're not getting anywhere. So if you have little bits like, hey, we're going to do this, and then this, and then, hey, 2 weeks later, we've moved the needle forward, people feel great. We reviewed all the technical skill levels of the staff, retrained as needed. We had to move some people around. Again, like I mentioned, we established weekly meetings with agendas and notes and minutes, and it was quite big impact on morale. We also added a team lead level of supervision to this organization. They typically just had 5 managers and then the staff below them. We added a team lead, which is like a lead hand level, and we trained them in leadership skills and organizational skills, and that had a huge impact. The managers were freed up to do more. They could spend more time with their staff on building their team, and the team leads were more focused on the day-to-day operation of getting the tasks done, and it really had a great effect on the business. So let's move on to the last part, which is about product. This has 4 main areas, and this is all about selling, right? This is all about what we do. So we're going to talk about customers, marketing, your products and services, and sales. So let's start with customers. So again, when you're facing a type of crisis or this particular pandemic, we want to do a review of our current customers. So what are the needs that they have? Remember early on I said, what are the 5 things that we can do for our customers right now? What are the 5 things about their business we can provide, or about their lives we can provide for them? So let's really get in touch with what are the needs our customers have now, and what are the things that they could want in the future. Let's make sure we're really focused on that. The second thing is, I'm sure all of you are aware of a term called the 20-80 rule. Just in case you're not, the 20-80 rule states that 20% of your customers will generate about 80% of your revenue. And it's not always that exact ratio, but it's usually pretty close. And we find that if you spend the time to really identify in your business who your 20% are, there is huge opportunities to sell them more, to upsell them, and to hold on to them, because losing one of those customers could be devastating to your business. There's also a term called share of wallet. And what that states is that for the category you sell in, how much of what that customer spends are you getting? So if they typically spend $100, but you're only getting 10, where's the other $90 going? How can we get more of that share of wallet? So again, what we do with the review is we talk about what are the extra value, what is the extra value we can provide over and above just our typical sale to make the 20% want to stay with us longer and possibly even buy more or buy more frequently. Then the last component is lost customers. Did we lose any during the pandemic? Can we get them back? And then an even bigger question is, do we want them back? Because while the 20-80 rule applies to customers that, your 20% generate 80%, you also have your bottom 20% of your customers that generate about 1 to 2% of sales, but sometimes they generate 60 to 80% of your problems. So maybe there's customers you don't want back, and this might actually be a good opportunity to fire a couple of them. Next, you want to look at your marketing. So there's traditionally 3 main channels of marketing. And I'm not going to get into great detail here, but there's about 3 of them. The first is traditional, which includes advertising, public relations, sales, things like that. Social media is another avenue. And then, of course, online, which includes your website, search engine optimization, Google, and email. So again, look at those marketing channels. Are you using them all? If you are, how are they performing? If they're not performing well, you can have a discussion with your team about that. You can possibly outsource some of this, but it's something to look at is how are we generating those leads? Now, I put the word budget in here because, in a crisis, having a budget is incredibly important. Maybe you didn't have one before. Maybe it was sort of just seat of our pants, or as we had some bucks, we threw it at some marketing. Having a budget now is important because dollars and cash flow could be tight at times. So making sure you have a budget in place is very important. And again, it doesn't have to be a huge budget. It just means that you're doing some things consistently. And then if you're using things like online tools or social media tools, they're much easier to measure than some of the traditional tools. But make sure you're trying to measure as best you can and see, are those dollars I'm putting out there generating leads back into our business? Then we would do a review of your products and services. So what are our complete list of products and services we have now? Now, believe it or not, your products and services also have a 20/80. You will find that probably 20% of your products generate about 80% of your revenue. So again, what are those products and services that we have that generate the most? Those are usually correlated to needs that your clients have. So we talked earlier about your clients are going to be really focused on needs right now versus wants. So more than likely, those needs are tied to your core products. So let's make sure we have good inventory, our quality controls in place, our delivery is in place, and that's why I put down here logistics. Have we taken into account any of the new physical requirements that we may have to make adjustments? Let's make sure we really got that locked down so that at least our core services and products are really well looked after. And then the last thing is new opportunities. Are there any new products that the market is looking for that you could actually supply? So I know some of my clients I have a client called Brand Boulevard. They do promotional products, logoed merchandise. They actually found an opportunity to sell hand sanitizer and masks through this. And of course, then they threw in the opportunity for you to brand it yourself as well. So they found new opportunities that they were able to put into the marketplace and generate some new sales through. So it was quite helpful to them. And then lastly is sales. I just want to walk through a couple of numbers that you as a senior manager or business owner should be looking at as far as sales goes. Whenever I'm looking at sales that are not hitting their target, there's three numbers I want to know. The first is our closing ratio. So closing ratio stands for the number of sales you have asked for and how many did you get. So there's a ratio. So for example, if I asked for 10, I put 10 quotes out and I closed 3, my closing ratio is 30%. The second number I want is my target of dollars closed. What is my sales goal for the month? So say it's $100,000. And then the third number is my pitch dollars. So if my closing ratio is 25% and my closed target is 100,000, then I need to pitch $400,000 because $100,000 is 25% of $400,000. So that's how that math works. It's my closing ratio, how many quotes do I close out of every 10? My closed dollars is my sales target for the month or the week or the quarter, and then pitched. How much do I have to pitch in order to hit my closed number? Many sales challenges come with either our ratio is too low, our closing ratio, we don't close enough business, or we don't pitch enough business and we don't hit our numbers. So again, when you look at those numbers, you can quickly see where your challenge might be. The other thing that is incredibly important in sales is activity. Daily activity has to happen. Now, if you're a solopreneur, you're on your own, you have to carve out an hour a day to do some type of sales activity. That could be a combination of emails, phone calls, social media, visits, Zoom meetings, whatever it is, but you need to carve that time out. Even if you're busy, you still need to carve that out because you don't want to have dips in your activity. If you have a sales team, then this is the number one thing you want to be following and measuring is their activity. What are they doing every single day to move the needle forward? And what are they doing the right things? Then you want to look at the next 90 days and do some forecasting and say, what do we expect to close the next 30, 60, 90 days? That's incredibly important. If you're in a retail environment, you're going to want to look at how are we going to ramp up store traffic? How are we going to ramp up visitation to the store? How do we think we can get it to a certain point? And then again, how much staff am I going to need here? And how are we working on training our staff to be able to do upsells and whatnot? So again, it's all about being really focused on smaller chunks of time right now. Don't worry about, hey, what's my goal for next year? No, let's focus on the next month or even the next week. What are we trying to accomplish? Now let's just quickly talk about your customers. So right now, like I said, they're probably focused on survival, right? They're looking at immediate needs and they're neck deep in this current crisis. So again, educating your customers about how you can help them with that. letting them know what you offer, how you could help, how easy you can make it for them to do business with you. That's a critical thing to keep in mind, is how easy you can make doing business with you. The second is trends. What big picture trends are happening right now in your industry? Some things might have been happening before the pandemic, and there's things happening after the pandemic. So let's look at what they are and what we could take advantage of. And the third thing is value. Customers do not buy your products and services. What they buy is the value they get from those products and services. So you need to look at what can you add to what you offer beyond the basic transaction. Can you add additional information? Can you add service? Can you add training? Can you add add-on products? We're not talking about discounting here. I'm not talking about giving away the store. Discounting is not what we're getting at. We're talking about focused on what can you add to the transaction that adds value, not just lowers your profit margin. Okay, so look at those things that you can really focus on. Let's do one last quick case study here. This is a window and door manufacturer. This was a partnership. It had two partners based in Niagara, staff of about 80 and about 40 million in annual sales, so a great little company. The biggest issue was the crisis that we had was there was a health issue with one of the owners. And it had a huge impact on his ability to be in the business. And so a lot of changes had to be made. The other big challenge was they didn't have a sales department internally. What they had was third-party resellers across North America. And the president of the company was leading the sales management. And he was also the one with the health issue. And so we found it was just a constant struggle to hold people accountable, and knowing what was happening in the business was negligible. It was constantly struggling to figure out what we were doing. So the first thing is we did a review of our customers, what their needs were, what they were getting from us and weren't getting from us, what trends were happening, what was going on. And from that analysis, we decided to move from a third-party reseller and develop an internal sales department. We then hired a sales manager to help us manage it, and we embarked on a North American campaign and tour to educate customers on what we did and how we did it. And the overall result was this took some time to develop the sales process, to hire the salespeople, to train them, get the sales manager up to speed. But once the whole group was in place, we found that sales actually almost tripled from that, because we had much more control over the sales department, and we had way better accountability of what everyone was working on. Okay, so we're almost out of time here. The last thing I want to share with you is a 90-day game plan. So these are 4 things that you should be focused on right away to make sure your team is focused and is ready to go. So the first thing is assemble your core team that you can really trust and count on. You're going to need to have, again, I mentioned that 3 to 5 person team, if possible, of people that you can really count on, that are going to have your back, are going to be able to speak the same vision you have, the same purpose, deliver that message consistently to your team, and really lean on, you can all lean on each other to get through this. Second is setting expectations. I don't know if any of you have ever read the book called Good to Great, but there's something in there called a BHAG, which stands for a big, hairy, audacious goal. So what is your big, hairy, audacious goal for, say, the next 90 days? And let's set expectations about what we want to do and make sure we're all clear and focused on that. Next is managing priorities. There's 2 tools that we use for this that we find very helpful. One is a tool called time blocking. This is where you chunk your week down to hourly or 2-hour pieces where you are laser focused in that time. And it doesn't have to be your whole week, but you take components of that where you shut the door, you shut off your email, you shut off your cell phone, and you're focused on those things. You'll find your productivity will skyrocket. And the second thing is there's a piece of technology we love called Slack. I believe it's even free to use. So there is enterprise versions that cost. But it's a great tool where your teams or departments can have conversations They can be stored there. They can share documents, and it just improves communication. And of course, the last part is regularly communicating progress to the whole team. People want to feel that they're making progress and that we're in this together and we're accomplishing something. And that is critically important. So I fed you guys a lot of stuff. I want to say thank you so much for spending time with me. If any of you have any questions, please feel free to message me, or you could send me an email and we can chat offline. But thank you all so much for your time. And I really wish you all the best, and best of luck to everyone getting through the pandemic.